Hello there, Chris Levels, the host of the YouTube channel Politics Prophecy. One word, please go and check out my other work. You can like, make comments, subscribe. All three would be nice. I'm not trying to get monetized, so let's just put that out there now. And as you can see by the numbers of the videos, the views, there's not much chance of me getting rich or changing my lifestyle off of these videos. But that's not the point of why I do them. I do them to educate, expose, and enlighten those who wish to be so. So whether it is one or whether it's 100, wishfully 1,000 or whatever, doesn't matter. I do what I do out of obedience to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and knowing that the time is short, as you can see by events happening all around us in this world today. It's getting crazier and crazier. Who would have thought that you would actually see young people in the streets with masks on being allowed to beat up people carrying the United States flag while they themselves are carrying the red banner of communism? I never thought I would have seen it in my lifetime. Who would have thought you would have seen an NFL quarterback? We went from Roger Staubach, All-American, Heisman Trophy winner, serving in Vietnam, to Colin Kaepernick, who sits up there, takes a knee during the national anthem, starts this crazy movement of stupidity, holds press conferences while wearing a Che Guevara shirt, who was responsible for the murders of who knows how many people. And this guy is talking about oppression. Okie dokie. I just don't get it. It's a crazy world out here we're living in right now. What's even crazier, because as I make this video, we just had the elections 2 days ago. We have elected a governor in Virginia who is a transgender, transsexual. I could care less. It's whatever it is, it's messed up. And the people of the state just put this thing in charge of their state. There was a place, I just posted it on Facebook today, where the whole city council is either transgender or gay. Well, did I say gay? I meant homosexual. And the whole city council is homosexual. What does that say about the people in that town? Well, if you're a liberal who is anti-God, you're going to say it's progress. If you're a Christian, you should be falling on your knees praying and asking the Lord for mercy if you live anywhere near that place. And even as a nation, I mean, there are Americans, those that still want to adhere to the principles of America. We're getting vastly outnumbered. And the fact that any Democrat could win high office after the crimes that have been exposed within the party, knowing the platform that they stand for, says an awful lot. I know there's a lot of you that are eternal optimists out there, but I would suggest you wake up and smell the coffee, because Dorothy, you ain't in Kansas no more. So anyway, as I wrap this portion of the presentation up, what I'm going to be talking about is what I touched on in the last video concerning communism, the red horse of the apocalypse, in my opinion. And it is dealing with how the Soviet Union tried to entice the Negro population into a Negro Republic in the South. And I'm going to give you clear-cut evidence. This is not a theory. It is not it's history, which, of course, those in power would like to erase. But hopefully you will share, you will find it interesting, and, well, I would say be vigilant. And I'll take a phrase from Robert Griswold and say, team up, train up, stock up. Most importantly, have your relationship right with Jesus Christ, because that is the only name under heaven whereby we must be saved for all eternity. So God bless you and enjoy the show. I'm going to be taking the information from an article by Spirin Mitsotakis, and it was written in 2011 on October 27th. The article is entitled From the Soviet Files, An American Negro Republic, the Communist Secession Plot. Over at the American Thinker, Professor Paul Kengor recounts the story of the Communist Party USA's plot for their own version of Southern secession. Based on information from sources ranging from the FBI to the records of the Comintern, which is the entity the Kremlin used to control the, quote, official, unquote, communist parties around the world, to the testimony of black former members of the Communist Party, we learn from 1922 through 1930, the Soviet Comintern and the American Communist Party launched a long-term effort to relentlessly target black Americans. The Comintern ordered the American Communist Party to identify black causes in the Jim Crow South in particular. This push to recruit black Americans is one of the most salient features littered today throughout the declassified Comintern archives on Communist Party USA, otherwise known as CPUSA. The effort began when the Soviets in 1922 approved a huge $300,000 subsidy to the American Communist Party for purposes of agitation and propaganda among black Americans. 3 years later, in 1925, the Comintern selected a small group of 12 black Americans to come to Moscow for training. Just to give you an idea of how much money that actually is, in today's numbers, that $300,000 would be the equivalent of $4,371,000. So let that sink in for a minute to let you understand how serious these people were. That was just a warm-up. In 1930, at a Comintern conference in Moscow, a resolution was passed calling for the creation of a Soviet-directed and controlled, quote, Negro Republic, unquote, among America's southern states. Yes, that is correct. The Soviet Comintern, working through American communists, actually crafted plans to create a, quote, separate Negro state, unquote, or a segregated, quote, Negro Republic, unquote, in the South. The plan was to foment a black uprising within the South, which would join forces with the workers' uprising in the North when the revolution was deemed right. Together, black Americans and communist Americans would then occupy and lay siege to the United States, reconstituting the entire nation as a Soviet sister state. This has been known to Cold War historians for a long time, but only recently did we discover when and how the effort ended. Ronald Rodash was probably the first to pick this up over at PJ Tatler in August when the news broke that the FBI has released the first in a long series of previously classified material, that of the so-called Operation Solo effort. He explains, Solo referred to the secret recruitment of two bitter ex-communists, Morris and Jack Childs. The Bureau urged them to rejoin the party and work within its ranks to feed information to them. Before long, Morris Childs became what in effect was the CP's, or Communist Party's, Secretary of State, traveling around the world to meet top communist leaders, including those of both the Soviet Union and China. From his perch, he passed on to the United States government all he learned firsthand from Moscow's top leaders. He then tells us a bit about what can be found in the released files. They contain many gems. One of my favorite concerns the orders from one of the chiefs of the Soviet Politburo, Mikhail Suslov, who tells the comrades that the party has to give up its thesis that American blacks composed a separate nation and had to fight for the right of self-determination for its majority in the Black Belt of the South. Suslov, who under Brezhnev would become the chief ideologue of Moscow, told them that they cannot make policy based on 30-year-old Comintern directives at a time when American blacks lived in urban areas and were fighting for civil rights and desegregation. The files themselves are more specific. The discussion took place in a February 10, 1959 meeting during the 21st Congress of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union between some of the leaders of the Soviet Union, among them Mikhail Suslov, who, according to documents found by French police in a raid on a communist hideout in Morocco, had previously been tasked by Stalin to lead the USSR's effort to stir up trouble in the Middle East, and a CPUSA delegation consisting of Morris Childs and a black Communist Party leader named James Jackson. After presenting letters detailing all the wonderful things the various peace movements in the Communist Party USA were up to, posing the idea of a Negro magazine dealing with theoretical questions, which 2 years later Jackson would co-found Freedom Ways, a black political and cultural quarterly, and serve as a managing editor from 1961 through 1986, and asking for $300,000, there's that figure again, and health care treatment in the Soviet Union for CPUSA's aging leaders. Jackson starts complaining about the leadership of the party's National Executive Committee, which Jackson had resigned from in 1956 because he felt the party wasn't blaming Israel enough for the Suez War. I found his resignation letter in his papers, and says that the party's policies towards the Negro question need to be updated. That is when Suslov gives his green light, saying, yes, you are correct. Your Communist Party cannot base its theories and policies on resolutions adopted by the Communist International more than 30 years ago. That would be dogmatism. Great changes are taking place among the Negro people. In the past, 70% were on or near the land. Now this is reversed. 70% of the Negroes are in urban areas of the United States, while only 30% are in rural areas. This is certainly a radical change. If we do not see this change, the Communist Party can make terrible, catastrophic, or abrupt mistakes. When 70% of the Negroes live in the countryside and contingent territories and are separated from the white people, that is one situation. At that time, we could talk of self-determination. Now, however, 70% of the Negroes live in the cities. It is therefore necessary for you to review the situation and the position of the Communist Party on this matter. It is necessary for you to correct your policy. How could you place a slogan of self-determination when there is no territory? It would be reactionary and utopian to bring Negro people back to the soil. It would also be reactionary to place Negro people in ghettos in the cities. We are against ghettos, so your new policy is correct. The Soviet Union is against ghettos? Wow. Interesting, since they had a knack for creating them, and not just in communist countries. We find out in the files, also first pointed out by Radish, in a follow-on article in conjunction with John Haynes and Harvey Clare for the Weekly Standard, that Coleman Young, the longtime mayor of Detroit, 1974 to 1993, who, with the help of his close colleague Carl Levin, turned the city into something resembling the old Eastern Bloc municipalities, was a secret member of the Communist Party. That, of course, coming on top of the fully unionized General Motors, accomplished in 1936 thanks to a violent UAW strike led by Walter Reuther, who was also then a secret member of the Communist Party. And being that I live in Michigan and have lived in Detroit, I can attest to what these cities look like. And that violent strike that they're referring to took place in Flint, Michigan, which is where I currently reside. And when I think of the corruption that occurred under Coleman Young and the extension of that with the hip hop mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, it is just amazing because wherever you see these cities which with large black populations, put it this way, you don't see prosperity. And I'll leave it at that. Whether it be the schools, the families, the churches, which that's going to be the next topic I'm going to be talking about, by the way. But you just don't see prosperity. You see progressivism, socialism, collectivism, communism. But it's about control of the masses. It is about regulation of the economy. It is about corruption. It is about nepotism. There is no meritocracy. They literally have basically aristocracies and little fiefdoms in these cities today. Now, I will have to say this about Walter Reuther. Says that he later saw the light and kicked the red unions, including that of Nancy Pelosi's hero, out of the CIO in the late 1940s. So, it is amazing when you think about 95% of black people vote and support the Democrat Party. I don't want to hear this crap about how, oh, they have different values, but they vote for Democrats. No, if they're that stupid that they don't know that the Democrat platform is just full of communists, and by the way, I highly recommend the book and the documentary, The Enemies Within by Trevor Loudon. It will expose things to you that will blow your mind when it comes to the infiltration of communists within our highest parts of government. Not to mention, most of you probably already know that your professors on college campuses, over 90% of them are communist. And it is really amazing because you see Antifa, you see the Black Panther movement, you see the new Black Panthers, you see Black Lives Matter, except when it comes to murdering the unborn. But, or except when it's blacks killing blacks or when it's blacks robbing blacks. It only matters if a white person kills a black person. It's a total definition of hypocrisy, stupidity, and evil because these people are being funded, which is the point to show you that this started in 1922, but today you have Soros and you have people like him that whether those people actually are communist, because I can't see where the Soviet Union is actually funding these groups anymore. They don't have to because destabilization has taken place within the United States due to the enemies who are members of communist organizations and globalist organizations. They're right here and they're perfectly willing to do or to go along with the 45 goals of communism. So all I can say is that I hope you enjoyed the presentation and have a better understanding of why the blacks in this country are screwed up. That's all I'm going to say. Blind, deaf, incapable of escaping the mind control, the predictive programming, and the social engineering that's been going on for a long time. But I thank God for the 5% of us, as well as 50% of the whites and however many of Hispanics and that's about the only groups I want to name because so many Jews are supporting the Democrat Party and Muslims are supporting the Democrat Party along with pedophiles, every sodomite you can think of. Anyway, next week I'm really going to get back into the history of God's people and the coming New World Order. I just wanted to inform you of this because I found it so interesting. God bless you in Jesus' name. I hope you will go to the YouTube channel, Politics Prophecy, and subscribe to it. Share with your friends and family. God bless you. Bye-bye.